Where's the New Orleans Saints running back room rank in the NFL? Ladies and gentlemen, we are here off the bench with T-Bob, Jacob Hester. I believe Jacob's here. I'm guessing. I see T-Bob, but I don't see Jacob. I'm guessing he's here. So the running back room with the Saints, interesting question. I've got an interesting answer. We are going to break down stats, players, all that stuff. So the running back room itself, it's kind of a bit of a paradox because Alvin Kamara, to me, is the perfect running back for this system, for what Klint Kubiak wants to bring in from the San Francisco 49ers. He is the guy, right? He is as close as you can get to the skill set of Christian McCaffrey. We have talked about that at length. I have a 15-minute video comparing CMC and AK-41, all right? If you look at running backs and you look at the names of running backs and you think about who you would consider to be the best running back room, you probably wouldn't say the Saints. But you probably wouldn't say the Miami Dolphins either, right? Miami Dolphins with Mostert, A-Chain, Jeff Wilson, whoever else. So let's look at the Dolphins because that's what I'm going to compare this with. The Dolphins run a similar system. Came from the same tree, Mike McDaniel with Kyle Shanahan. Came from the same tree. This system, this style of offense is much less about who the players are. This isn't Madden. This isn't fantasy football. It's more about the system itself and getting the players who fit the scheme to perform in that system. All right? You can look at Brock Purdy in San Francisco. You can look at Raheem Mostert in Miami. The list goes on and on. Not worried about name value. Okay? Now the Miami Dolphins, just in your head, what tier would you rank their running back room of Raheem Mostert, A-Chain, Jeff Wilson? Just off the top of your head. Would you say S tier, A+ tier running back room? Because you probably wouldn't. The names don't jump off the page. They're not Pro Bowlers. They're not MVP candidates. They're not, the sexy names that ESPN and Fox Sports want to throw at you. But look at what the Miami Dolphins did last year. The Miami Dolphins ran as a team for over 2,300 yards. Mostert, 1,000 yards. A-Chain, 800 yards. Jeff Wilson, 188 yards. And as a team, they averaged 5.1 yards a carry, which is number 1 in the NFL. They were 5th in yards. Okay? So this running back room, this scheme, and remember, the Dolphins are a team that's considered a passing team. The Dolphins are a team that almost had a 2,000-yard wide receiver in Tyreek Hill. All you hear about with the Dolphins is the passing attack. But this team right here led the NFL in yards per carry. 5th in rushing yards. With a room that you wouldn't say is S tier or A+ tier or whatever. So the whole reason I say that is because I want you to think less about the players, less about what they've done in the past, and I want you to think more about the scheme that Klint Kubiak is about to bring in here.
Another interesting Saints piece that came out today. There was a CBSSports.com article in which they ranked the NFL running back rooms by tiers. Tier 1, in which they called the thoroughbreds. The Niners, of course, Christian McCaffrey. The Ravens, who, of course, now have Derrick Henry. The Eagles, who, of course, have Saquon Barkley. And the Packers, who have Josh Jacobs. That's strong for all those teams to pick up some real big names moving around.
I wonder where they had the Dolphins. I was interested to see if there was a ranking list to see where the Dolphins would be. Because I bet I'm right. I bet they don't have the Dolphins ranked very highly. I guess you'd probably have to go to before the season. Because if they look at the stats, they probably have to rank the Dolphins highly. But I mean, they're not in the top tier, right? So it just goes to show you what I'm talking about here. They're using name value. This is not Madden. This is not fantasy football. Name value will get you nowhere in today's NFL.
But then the New Orleans Saints find themselves right there in tier 2, which they deem quality depth.
Okay.
The Detroit Lions have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. The Dolphins have Raheem Mostert and Devon A-Chain, also drafted Jalen Wright. The Steelers have Najee Harris and Cordarrelle Patterson. The Jags have Travis Etienne, Tanks Bigsby, and Ernest Johnson. And the Saints have Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, and Kendre Miller. I think some people, if they hear Saints running backs tier 2, they haven't done anything lately, they'd be a bit surprised. But when you get to tier 3, it really just shows you what the running back market is. There's just not that many household names.
I wonder if they have Atlanta in tier 3. Because all I keep hearing about is how great Bijan Robinson is from every single Atlanta Falcons fan. And I keep saying that, I'm going to go back and take a look.
There's just not that many superstars. And even with Alvin Kamara struggling to his own standards, he still has gone over 1,000 yards from scrimmage in every NFL season that he's had. And nobody else can say that. Kendre Miller deals with injuries last year, but did finish pretty damn strong.
The NFL running back room has had a drastic change. So back in the day, say 20 years ago, you had your main running back, right? Your number one guy, the bell cow back. And he had the ball in his hands no matter what. And you know what he was doing with it? He was running straight forward. That was it. He may go off tackle. You may even get a pitch every once in a while. But you damn sure weren't sending Emmitt Smith out in the slot to run a route. You for sure weren't taking Jerome Bettis and matching him up with a linebacker out wide and see if you can run a mesh route or something. That wasn't happening. Jamal Lewis, he might as well have been screaming, hey, I'm running forward. I'm running straight. That's all they did. It's different now. Now, running backs have very specific roles. Some running backs are pass catchers. Some are runners. Some are more of a bruiser. Some are more of a speed back. Some are in on third down. Some are not in. Some are not in on the goal line. Some are in on the goal line. It's a whole different ballgame. I compare it to a bullpen in Major League Baseball, where it's not the seventh inning, so you go to the same guy just because he's your seventh inning guy. You're playing the matchups, you're playing the situations. Sometimes now, baseball teams bring their closer in like the eighth inning because they would rather face a tougher part of the lineup than just save him for the ninth just because it's a closer. That's what we're seeing with running back rooms. So this whole like household name thing, or, of course, obviously, there are some superstar running backs like Christian McCaffrey. But then you look at a team like the Lions, right? David Montgomery, I wouldn't say is a household name. Hell of a running back, right? So, we're seeing a very different world when it comes to running backs in the NFL.
And had some exciting potential flashed there at the end. Now, Jamal Williams, again, you got to hope that Klint Kubiak can find a way to better utilize him, because last year it felt like, no, Taysom Hill is your short yardage option, and it was kind of like, well, why do we have Jamal Williams in, and why are you paying as much Jamal Williams as you are? That said, there might not be a bigger winner from the Klint Kubiak offense.
AK-41, 100%. I've got good authority from a 228 betting syndicate member that members of the 228 syndicate betting group will have Offensive Player of the Year and MVP tickets on Alvin Kamara. Guys, say what you want, and I've gone through this over and over and over and over. You couldn't ask for a better player to fit into the San Francisco 49ers system than Alvin Kamara. Will Alvin Kamara produce what Christian McCaffrey does? Who knows, right? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, as far as the skill set, as far as his ability to catch the ball, his ability to run the ball, his ability to run routes, his ability to take on, because it's different when you're running routes and catching the ball, but you're not the mismatch. He is the mismatch. He is what Klint Kubiak wants to do. Klint Kubiak wants to find mismatches throughout the game, and there isn't a bigger mismatch than Alvin Kamara lined up on a linebacker, Alvin Kamara running routes. Last season, Alvin Kamara was used strictly as the fourth read, the check down in the flats. Worst possible way to use him, right? Just dump it to him 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage and cross your fingers and hope that he can pull some magic out of his hat. How should he be used? Just said it. In the slot, in motion, lined up on a linebacker, lined up on a bigger safety, whatever, taking on people down the field, running actual routes. Think Le'Veon Bell, back when they used to do that with the Steelers. Now, this is what's interesting about Kamara. So if you look at Kamara's stats, okay, we know how good Alvin Kamara has been. He's been real good, all right? Really, really good his entire career. We're talking about a 5-time Pro Bowler, Offensive Player of the Year votes, NFL second team. But if you look at what he's actually done, his carries are kind of wild. One, he's never had over 1,000 yards rushing, which makes sense because he catches the ball so much. But if you look at his carries, he had 180 carries last year. Now, he did miss the early part of the season with the suspension, sure. But the year when he had 16 touchdowns in 2020, he only had 187 carries. The year before that, 171. Granted, it was in 9 games started. But if you look at it, The most he's ever had is 240 and then 223. We've heard, and I hate to bring up Bijan again, but we've heard all offseason how Bijan Robinson was so underutilized and he never got the ball. And the share rate for the Falcons was crazy, right? They were giving the ball to 20 different running backs. Bijan got the ball last year 214 times. So, and I do agree, they certainly didn't give Bijan the ball enough last year, 100%. The work share rate was crazy in Atlanta. No idea why they were running 15 different running backs as much as they were. But it's kind of crazy to think about how little Alvin Kamara has carried the ball, even in the best parts of his career, right? So, because I keep hearing people say, like, Alvin Kamara has never had over 1,000 yards rushing. And they use that as kind of like a detriment. But when you look at how many times he's actually got the ball, when you look at those years of 171 carries and 187 carries, a 5.0 average, a 4.7 average, pretty sporty. Okay, very impressive. So don't let the 1,000-yard thing deter you. Obviously, the target, the catch rate, we looked at all that before. I have the Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey thing pulled up here. Again, I've got a 20-minute long video on this subject, on how similar they are. Skill positions, like skill-wise. They're not similar. McCaffrey's better. I'm not sitting here saying that McCaffrey is not, or there's not a difference in their production. What I'm saying is that what you ask, and here it is. Here is, if you want to remember one thing from this video, the whole point is what you ask Christian McCaffrey to do in that offense, you can ask Alvin Kamara the exact same thing. There is nothing that he can't do. There's no role that he can't do. Again, the production, whatever. But what you're going to ask of him, he can do it. This is the year for Alvin Kamara. This is the year for him. Now, he will deal with a horrific offensive line more likely. But he is the big winner. And people keep asking me, I've seen so many people say, like, what do you think about Kendra Miller? Do you think Kendra Miller will have 1,000 yards this year? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm not really concerned about what Kendra Miller is going to do this year. Will he get the ball? Will he get touches? Will he be utilized? Yes, absolutely. We've seen the numbers. Klint Kubiak will have 2 running backs on the field at the same time, probably somewhere around 30% of the time. So some combination of 2 running backs is going to be out there. What I'm more concerned about than Kendra Miller's development or how many touches he'll have or if he'll be the number 1 running back, spoiler, he won't. What I'm interested to see is, can Klint Kubiak in this offense, can it get Alvin Kamara back to the year we saw with 5 yards a carry? Can we see that? Because the system is there. Everything is there for him. He will be asked to catch the ball. He will be asked to run routes. We'll finally see the Alvin Kamara wheel routes again. Thank God. We will see that again. And I can't wait. I think it's going to be a huge year for Kamara. I really do.
Then the running back room. The Saints rushing attack was so blasé and pedestrian and predictable and boring last year that it made it harder on the offensive line and it made it harder on the running backs.
Yeah.
With the new motion concepts, play action, utilizing a ton of different weapons, hitting guys from different angles. I do expect, an emphasis on outside zone, something that Talise Fuaga is very good at doing.
Same thing as the Dolphins. Go watch the Dolphins from last year. Go YouTube Raheem Mostert highlights. All right. If you go watch that, you're not going to see them line up in the power I and hand the ball off to Raheem Mostert up the middle. You're not going to see that. You're going to see a lot of wide zone, outside zone run schemes. You're going to see a lot of misdirection. You're going to see a lot of Raheem Mostert running through huge holes, right? So, like thinking, well, we can't run the ball successfully because we don't have the offensive line to do that. If in your head you're thinking the old school I formation or strong formations where you got fullback in there and you're just kind of running up the middle, that's not what you're going to see. Now, I'm not saying we're guaranteeing 5 yards a carry. I'm not saying that. But the system fits what we have. And that's a big reason why I'm so excited about this season, is that we're not bringing over a system without the pieces. Whether it's serendipitous or not, the pieces that we have in New Orleans could not fit any more perfect than the system that Klint Kubiak wants to bring over or is bringing over.
If Trevor Penning can, continue some of the potential that he's showing at right tackle, we will see. Again, the running backs may be the biggest beneficiaries of anyone.
Yeah, they probably will.
On this team when it comes to Klint Kubiak. So, yeah, you tell me that the Saints are tier 2, and you look at those Lions, Dolphins, Steelers, Jags room. I'd say that's accurate. I'd say the Saints' potential to have a tier 2 running back room is pretty damn good. And that, again, the hope would be that even though I don't think he'll do it to this level, the same way that San Francisco revitalized Christian McCaffrey's career, can Klint Kubiak inject a bit of life into Alvin?
Again, you can even take it a step below. You can even take, Christian McCaffrey is like a legitimate MVP, maybe the best, like one of the best players in the NFL, certainly the best running back in the NFL, arguably the best offensive player in the NFL. So that's a very high bar to compare to. But you can drop it down, like I just said, and go with Miami and say, can we have that kind of production? Because as good as McCaffrey is, as good as San Francisco is, Miami led the league in yards per carry, 5.1, right? That's what we need to be comparing ourselves to. Can the revitalization of Alvin Kamara look the same as Raheem Mostert? Look the same as A-Chain? And then if you want to go a step even further down, you could say, well, look at the production of Kyron Williams with the Rams. Look at his production. Look at what they got out of him. So it doesn't have to be, I know San Francisco is the easy comparison, but it doesn't have to be always the San Francisco comparison. There's enough of these wrinkles and offshoots of the Shanahan tree that we can take a look around the NFL and see what they're doing, and we can expect a little bit of the same here in New Orleans.
Kamara's career. We'll see. Wow.
We shall see. Boom. There you go. Yeah, we shall see. I'm excited for it. I think Alvin Kamara's going to have a big year. Alvin Kamara is the only thing to talk about the Offensive Player of the Year and MVP. Alvin Kamara is in a situation where a lot of touchdowns will be vultured because of Taysom Hill on the goal line, because of Jamal Williams, because of anything else cute we do. Kendra Miller, sure. But that's the only problem, is that if a lot of other running backs, if they're on the goal line, they're probably going to that running back. If we're on the goal line, it could go to anybody. So, you always need those touchdowns when you're trying to get awards and all that. So it's just something to think about too. So I guess same with fantasy, but I think Kamara will have a huge year. The receptions way up, and the right kind of receptions. Like, it drove me crazy last year whenever Kamara would end up with, he'd have 0 receptions going into the fourth quarter. We're down 14, and then we're in a 2-minute drill. And the 2-minute drill is just dumping the ball to Kamara. Kamara ends up with 7 receptions. And remember last year he was on pace to break the single season receiving record, or receptions record. He was on pace to have like 280 catches or something. He was getting like 15 catches a game. I think he had 19 catches one game when he had like 30 yards. It was the craziest stat line of all time. So that's like those aren't the receptions he's going to be getting. Sure, he will get some dump passes. Sure, there will be some checkdowns, but I would love to see the percentages of how many routes Kamara ran last year versus how many routes he's going to run this year. And if you go look at the Alvin Kamara highlights from when Sean Payton was the coach and Alvin Kamara was really at the peak of his powers, there's so many times where he's running a wheel route or he's running like a deep post in the middle of the field. And I have a sneaky feeling, ladies and gentlemen, we will see that again. And very excited to see that. So, ladies and gentlemen, get on down there in the comments below. Let me know what you think about AK-41, the Saints running back room. Do you think this is the year we see the best of Alvin Kamara? Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.